Thursday's Just Baseball show is brought to you by Bryce Harper's Tuesday Night Theatrics, the new ace of the Chicago White Sox, and Travis Bazzana. It is not brought to you by Casey Mize. Jack Aram, today is Thursday, April 4th. Legitimately, it's brought to you by BetMGM. The world, I just mentioned this to you, the world doesn't want me to see Casey Mize shove in New York. Back-to-back postponements of Casey Mize and Adrian Hauser. With all due respect to Adrian Hauser, I'm not tuning into this game for you. I'm waiting for the rain to go away in Queens, and I want to see my king start his ascension back to the throne. Do you feel my frustration?
I mean, that was one of the games we earmarked. We were like ready for it. So no, I do feel the frustration. I feel like for the Mets, they're probably fine with that, with the start that they've had. And I do feel like they're just ticking closer to getting healthy. They're trying to get JD Martinez ramped up and back and ready to go. I've never seen a hitter need so much time to be ramped up, but that's an entirely different topic. Does this give us a super fresh Casey Mize on like 7 days rest or 8 days rest, or to just give us a rusty Casey Mize, and then you have to take the first outing with a grain of salt if it's negative? If it's good, then it's good. This is like the Peter logic that we've been working with over the last week or two here. I had some similar Peter logic with Bo Bichette that we went into. I actually watched Bo Bichette make another error yesterday,
did you?
by the way. By the throwing variety also. I wasn't going to bring it up, but Peter brought it up last episode when Vladdy went 0 for 3. So this is just going to become a recurring thing that our listeners will have to tolerate. But no, I think with Mize, he's got to be feeling fresh and ready to go. Hopefully there's not rust, though. We're like kind of getting to that point, though, because the last time he threw was the 26th in spring training. At what point does it become rust?
So that was the big conversation last year in the postseason, right? With Atlanta, where it was rest versus rust. And
with hitters, it makes sense.
With hitters, I get it. With pitchers, especially one coming off of TJ, I am less concerned about an elongated layoff, actually. My thing is, the first time Casey Mize throws 90 to 100 pitches, if this were to happen, I'd start to get worried. But the fact that it's his season debut, I'm not that worried just yet. Also, it gives the Mets time to plug in Julio Teheran if they want to start him instead of Adrian Hauser. They just signed him, according to John Heyman. So you've got Teheran as a Met, Mike Clevenger as a White Sox. The dominoes are starting to fall in place, man. And to cap the rust versus rust thing, I really don't think it's that much of an issue for pitchers in the early goings. And this is not a new thing. Like, whenever the Minnesota Twins have their first homestand, they're gonna have 2 games banged. Like, it's a thing that you have to expect in early April. I look outside in Indy and it's 40 degrees and rainy. I was in the Meyer parking lot earlier today, and the rain was falling sideways, and it might have been hail. I have no idea. But welcome to baseball that isn't being played in the Southeast. Baseball that is being played in the Southeast, though, is in Gainesville, Florida. I want to go southeast, and then I want to go northwest. Because Jack Caglione did something to a baseball that I didn't really think was possible. Breaking ball about shin high, and he punches out, I think at 115. The ball went, 450 out to right? Say what you want about Caglione's command issues on the mound. I think this year, all of the concerns that I had, at least, about him being like a major league caliber hitter, I have to push farther down. And I want to ask you, like, are those concerns going away when you see him do this again with the bat?
Well, it was 491.
491. Okay,
which
that was a lot better.
Crazier. It was like in the happy zone of a left-handed hitter at the end of the day, but like also not, because it kind of got in a little bit further. But just to do that with any pitch is absolutely absurd. To answer your question on Caglione, the hitter, I feel a lot better about him based on what we've seen this year. But there still has been a level of aggression. There still has been some things that, I'm interested to see how it translates at the professional level. But I do think that so far, well, one, we're seeing the power just continue to become more absurd, where it's getting to that like 80 territory.
Yeah.
And then you have the idea that, okay, he is inching closer to a better hit tool and and the approach is inching further along as well. Like he's never been a bad swing and miss guy. It's been more about the approach. So seeing that just get a little bit better is great. But we're also seeing that the field of hit continue to improve and the power not coming at any expense either. So I'm definitely feeling better about Caglione for sure. But I still wonder if they're just going to lean into, more of the hitting side. We're seeing some really good two-way prospects scrap it pretty early and for good reason, especially with the Giants with Bryce Eldridge. And then we saw it as well with, why am I drawing a blank now? Of course, Reggie Crawford.
Yeah.
So I wonder if teams are just going to say, hey, let's just focus on the bat. But he's been throwing all right too.
The college example is Braden Montgomery too. Like they just scrapped it with the arm, even though he probably could have been one of A&M's best
Who is
pitchers.
hitting out of his mind,
Yeah,
by
like he's one of the better offensive pieces in the country right now. So that guy's stock may actually have held serve. Instead of being a great two-way guy, he's now an elite outfield prospect. And Caglione, I wonder if like a team that drafts him will just say, hey man, it was fun to watch you pitch,
Yep.
but like we're gonna make you the best right fielder in the game. And I think he may be receptive to that.
I think so. And I think what we're seeing him do with the bat, like as you mentioned, like just the bat being so insane. And then the pitching, like he's a good college pitcher, but he's walking still 4 or 5 guys every
Yeah.
time he's out there. He's able to miss enough bats to work around it, but it's not like he's dominating hitters.
So
It feels like they're going to shift him by the time he gets drafted.
real quick, my thing is there are a lot of major league hitters that were good college pitchers. There are a lot of major league pitchers that were good college hitters. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's one guy that's been able to do both at an elite level. Michael Lorenzen tried to sign a deal to allow him to
Yeah.
do both. Guess what? He did one. So like there's really only one guy. Unfortunately, I don't think Caglione is the next, once in a lifetime player because it may not come again in our lifetime. That's the whole definition of once in a lifetime. But his bat is a sight to behold for the University of Florida. Real quick before we move on to Travis Bazzana, to wrap up the college update, I know you haven't done the data dive like you do on top prospects in pro ball because you have, that professional sample under your belt. But if you had to slap a grade on the game power for Caglione right now, like, are you leaning 70? Are you
Yeah.
leaning future 80? What's going on?
I'm leaning 70 right now because he's elevating too. And that's the thing. Like he's not a big guy that's a little inefficient and putting the ball on the ground. Like he's consistently driving the ball in the air. I think it's a future 80, but right now it looks like 70 power. And again, we talk about how you can subtract about 3 miles per hour on the EVs. And then sometimes if you want to even get a little bit more aggressive to be conservative on how they project as a pro, you could subtract 4 to 5 miles per hour. Even if you did that with Caglione, the raw EVs are going to be, plus plus, and just to see him elevating like he is too to all fields. Yeah, it's an easy plus plus power tool, and now with the bat to ball getting better and the approach getting better, he's going to be a really exciting bat.
Through 27 games of Travis Bazzana's junior year at Oregon State, what do you think his OPS is?
Bazzana's OPS through this season alone, sorry, or his whole
This
career.
season alone.
I'm gonna guess he has what 16, 17 home runs. I'm
It's
gonna
16
guess
homers.
it's it's got to be over 2,000.
No, no, no.
Oh, was that too
Yeah,
outrageous?
you ruined it.
I ruined it.
You
What
killed
is
it.
it?
1665.
I thought it might be close to 2,000 at this point. I ruined it. We got to stop doing the guess thing because I'm gonna always assume it's something insane,
But
and then
like
I
the
ruin your point.
but the craziest OPS I think I've ever seen is like 1450 at any check of a sample. So I was hoping you were going to be like, oh, 1400, 1500. And I'm like, no, 1600. But you're like 2000 and you just poured water
I
on my
almost said
fire.
1,800, and then I was like, you know
That would have been
what?
good.
Maybe it's 2,000 because I was doing a bonus episode of the call up, and I was going over his last like 20 ABs at that point, and he had gone through a stretch where it was. Then this is just game by game: 2 home runs, 2 home runs, 1 home run, 1 home run, 2 home runs, no home runs, and then 1 home run, 1 home run. So I was looking at that stretch, and through that stretch, I'm pretty sure he had like an OPS over 2,000. Yeah, if you actually pull before the last game yesterday, which would have been Tuesday, if you pull a stretch of 10 games, the previous 10 games from the 15th to the 1st, he had an OPS over 2,000.
Okay. There
So
we
I
go.
was a little jaded there. I think I got a little bit of a sample size there that threw the number way higher for me, but that's insane still. Absolutely insane.
In 27 games, Bazana is 47 for 101. So he's slashing 465, 606, 1059 with a slug, 1059 for a 1665 OPS, 16 homers, 39 driven in 27 games. He's got 6 bags. He's rocking a walk rate of 34%. He's rocking a K rate of, I think, 11%. 10%?
Yeah, 11%.
Yeah, 12 Ks and 137 plate appearances.
Like something around there.
So
Yeah.
it's a 30% walk rate, like a 10% K rate, and he's slugging over 1,000. How's his shortstop play?
I mean, he's pretty much just playing second base only at this point. So it's like, but he made a crazy grab and an insane backhand play yesterday as well. And I'm like, this guy's a really good second baseman, but with how fast he is, I'm wondering if a team that drafts him, which it seems like it might be the Guardians, he seems like the slam dunk 1-1.
Mhm.
But there's some interesting data points that have Charlie Condon not far off from a contact perspective, the kid from Georgia, which is also really crazy because, and maybe a team can talk themselves into him. And I keep saying a team, it's the Guardians at number 1. But I mean, the speed that he has, I wonder if they'll try him in center field or if they'll just lean into, hey, we have a great defensive second baseman, because really we haven't seen him play shortstop at all this year, which was interesting. So it was floated. Maybe we'll see him do it. That's what West Virginia was doing with Weatherholt, and then he got hurt. But it seems like they're just leaning into second base and watching him hit. And the thing is he's added power, the fact that his added power hasn't come at the expense of his plus hit is the most outrageous part. That the fact that he's slugging the way he's slugging while still maintaining one of the best hit tools you're going to see,
Yeah.
is why I think he's the number 1 pick.
Okay, with the information that you are now equipped with, what is Charlie Condon's OPS through 29 games?
Okay, well, it's not 2000.
It's not 2000.
I'm gonna go 1550.
1723.
Okay, so that's actually like pretty close to 2000.
Yeah, that is. So Condon at this point through 29 games is slashing 482, 593, 1130, a slug over 1100. He's got a 1723 OPS, 19 homers, 41 driven in 29 games. He has more home runs than strikeouts. Very few college hitters in the country have more home runs than they do strikeouts. I think the last guy that I remember doing it is Pavin Smith, I feel like, at Virginia. Vaughn might have done it at Berkeley. I'll look at that in
You're
a
not
moment.
helping our case with these guys.
I mean, but like,
I know there's levels to this stuff, but you got to look at the swings and look at what they're doing. And Condon's just doing a different level of damage. This is from Joe Doyle, who does a great job covering the draft. Overall contact rate, Charlie Condon 86%, Travis Bazzana 85%, Braden Montgomery 80%. Chase rate, Charlie Condon 23%, Travis Bazzana 17%, Braden Montgomery 17% or 24%, excuse me. Average exit velocity, Charlie Condon 99 miles per hour, Travis Bazzana 94 miles per hour, Braden Montgomery 99 miles per hour. So from a pure data perspective, Condon's the outlier of this college baseball season and probably of most seasons. I do think though, when you look at the swing and just kind of what's going on, what translates to professional baseball most directly, I think Bazzana is the safe and understandable pick. Also,
yep.
You're kind of wondering where Condon's long-term defensive home is going to be. I think he's been better at third than maybe many thought, but he's still, got it. I mean, 6'6", is he going to stick there? Maybe he learns a corner outfield spot. I think Bazzana translates the best, but I could see teams starting to really fall in love with what they're seeing from a 6'6" Condon, who is doing the power and hit thing at a really scary clip.
Listen, if you're pissed that you let Nolan Jones and Will Benson and Yainer Diaz walk, like, I get it if they do want to try and finagle their way into convincing themselves that Condon is the right pick, but it does feel like Bazzana is the one. Pavin Smith did it, 13 homers, 12 punch-outs in his draft year. Vaughn did it his sophomore year, not his junior year. But Andrew Vaughn, his sophomore year, 23 homers, 18 Ks it seems like Condon is on the fast track to blow by those power numbers. Like Smith, it was, oh, he's hitting the ball. Like he was more bat to ball than anything. 13 homers is not particularly
No.
impressive from a college third baseman. But if Condon is like 30 plus homers, fewer than 30 strikeouts, he's entering a tier that we've really never seen in college
No.
baseball.
No, and it's the scary like athleticism and feel to hit for a guy that's that big. And yeah, he was feasting on weaker competition early on, and then now we've seen him put the same swings on balls from day one draft pitching prospects. And I think when he did it against Alabama, that was a really clear example of that. It's going to be the 1-1 debate this year that I think is going to kind of echo last year in a similar but different way, where it's going to be Condon, Bazana. It's going to kind of be the Langford and Cruz, and then all of a sudden, I'm not saying that he's Paul Skeens, but that sneaky little arm over there, Wake Forest, and Chase Burns. I shouldn't say little, like the power arm that just continues to rise up the ranks here and dominate. I mean, if he keeps this going, again, like he could be a guy that forces his way into the conversation in the top 3 too. I don't think he's got the Skeens helium. I don't think anybody will have the Skeens helium, but you never know, because we wouldn't have thought that last year either. So I think there'll be some similarities there maybe with the top 3, but don't sleep on Braden Montgomery either with A&M. One of my favorite swings in college baseball.
I mean, Guardians fans, you're going to have a choice. Reds fans, you're going to have a choice too. It's turning into a weird one where you thought, okay, we're going to get a clear one too, and the Reds decision is going to be easy. Like, no, there are a lot of phenomenal players in college baseball right now. By the way, happy 26th birthday, Andrew Vaughn. Turned 26
Oh,
on
wow.
Wednesday. Didn't get to face Spencer Strider. That might be a nice birthday present because you got postponed in Chicago. Bryce Harper, it took until game 5 of the season for him to have his first hit of the season. Turned out to be a dong. He hit 2 more of them. The last one, a grand slam. I think he was 3 for 4, maybe 3 for 5 with 6 driven in and 3 nukes. He is so ridiculously special, and I'm not breaking any news when I say that. And I'm not breaking any news to Phillies fans that they should be head over heels in love and like this is, surefire Hall of Famer that's going in wearing your cap. But it's those subtle reminders that all those things are true that makes you realize how lucky you are to be an active baseball enjoyer while Bryce Harper's playing baseball.
Yeah. I mean, just you got to tune in, especially there's just days where like when he's locked in, you can just kind of see it.
Yeah.
Then you might see something special. There's a lot of times where you get that first home run and you're like, okay, there's going to be a lot more swings the rest of this game. We'll see if they land and if they're home runs or whatever, but he's going to square up some other baseballs today. And I felt like that was kind of what we got after the first home run off of Ashcraft, 1-2 count. He goes, the other way to left center. And like, okay, he's starting to be dialed in here. And then he does it again. But the fact that where you look at like the 3 home runs, it was the other one was to left center, 2 strike count. And he goes whole side, just straight down the line, first pitch. And then the third home run is another full count, and he hits it to straightaway right field. So kind of like spraying it from slightly to left center to right center to straight down the line and right. I mean, that's a guy that I think is about to get on a really nice hot streak here because the swings, I think, finally in sync for him. And that's always scary when that's happening.
So the Philly pitching situation in this game is also pretty interesting to me. Spencer Turnbull went 5 innings, no earned runs, 7 Ks, no walks. I didn't think
crazy.
Spencer Turnbull still had that in him. But the story here is Ricardo Pinto, who went 4 innings and got the save. Turnbull threw 5. Pinto got to the ballpark in the 4th. He was in Rochester with Lehigh Valley. He got the call that his contract was being selected. The Phillies called a driver, stuck in traffic. Pinto got there in the 4th inning. He entered in the 6th and threw the final 4 innings of the game. So Ricardo Pinto, you have the travel story of the year to this point. Congratulations.
I didn't even know, like, I thought there was almost just like kind of, not that there's a rule against it, but I just felt like just managers accepted that, hey, if you're not here before game time, I'm not putting you in.
No,
I thought that was kind of like a unspoken thing. Not that I have a problem with it. It works. Like if he's there, ready to go, warm him up, go. It doesn't make that much of a difference, clearly. But I know, I just felt like that was always something that you would never see. That's one of the more unique stories I feel like we've heard in a while. I'm sure there's other examples that we don't know about, but
Yeah.
that's one of the few I've ever heard.
It's tough because they used one, two, three, four, five, six, seven pitchers in a 10 inning game the night before. That's a 30-year-old that just had his contract selected. So you just assume that guy is a plug and play guy. But yeah, you would think that, they would say, okay, yeah, we're not going to use you. And then if all hell breaks loose in the 8th inning, then you use him. But the fact that that guy went 4 innings fresh off of, an Uber stuck in traffic is amazing. So credit Ricardo Pinto and credit Bryce Harper for being exactly who he is. I've got Bieber fever again. I'm willing to say it. Shane Bieber, another phenomenal performance. Was he getting barreled up at the end of it? Sure. Did that result in runs? No, it did not. Shane Bieber, off of a scoreless outing in Oakland on opening night, goes 6 innings of 6-hit shutout ball, struck out 9, didn't walk anyone. So Shane Bieber, to this point this year, has thrown 12 innings of shutout baseball, 20 Ks, 1 walk. Oh, by the way, he's 2-0. He looks like not the Cy Young version because I thought 2020 Bieber was kind of like cracked,
Yeah.
but he looks like the borderline top 5 pitcher in baseball, Shane Bieber, that we were talking about in 2021.
He looks healthy, right? Like he's just back to that 91, 92, and it's more 92, 93 even a little bit, which is the interesting part because I think that's a big difference for him. His command is so good, the pitch shapes are so good, the way he can tunnel is so good. That's the only reason why he's been able to still be so effective despite all the injuries and his velocity dropping off over the last few years. We used to sit more 93, 94, and then in that 2020 season, like you mentioned, averaging more in the mid 90s. So just seeing him be at least back to where he was when we were talking about the reinvented, or not reinvented, but I guess the adjusted Shane Bieber, which was still one of the best pitchers in the game, but doing it at 92, 93. It's a little bit harder to do it when you're 90, 91 and you're not healthy. And the command may not be as consistent because your arm's not feeling great. He looks like he's feeling great. And that's the most important thing. And that's the most exciting thing. And he deserves it, man. Cause like this is going to be a big time for him where you hope the Guardians are competing and he's throwing big games for them and can help them make the playoffs. But if that's not the case, he's going to get himself traded to a contender and he's going to make himself more money in free agency. So it's a win-win either way. Obviously, you always want to pitch well, but this is such a pivotal point for Shane Bieber's career. He's going to be 29 years old very soon, about to hit free agency, been in the same spot for a while, needing to prove that he can stay healthy. 83 pitches back-to-back days, 20 Ks, no runs, 1 walk. Like, I really hope that he can keep this going for the whole season because, I would love to see him get his bag in free agency, and I'd love to see him pitch in meaningful games.
And, think about it from the Guardian perspective too. Like Tristan McKenzie did not look that sharp on Monday. And, Carlos Carrasco is a placeholder for Gavin Williams. Stephen Vogt just said Williams pretty much has to start from scratch. He was given the 100% full go after his last bullpen, but he's going back to Arizona. And it's like, hey, man, you got to start the build-up process again. So it might be several weeks, might be 3 weeks before Gavin comes back. That's 3 turns through the rotation, maybe even 4 turns through the rotation. So Bieber being like this right now is very important in this not great division, especially when you've got Kansas City playing tight with Baltimore. And we're talking before Reagans and Burns get underway. But, like the Guardians do need a frontline guy and they need some sort of sense of security in that division right now. And I think he can be that until a Gavin Williams comes back and you create that 5-headed monster of Bieber, Bybee, McKenzie, Williams, and Logan Allen, who goes on Wednesday too. I think there might be another frontline starter in the American League Central. Garrett Crochet has thrown 13 innings through his first 2 starts, and I've seen the A word thrown around on Twitter, and don't do that yet. They don't have an ace on their hands. They might have an ace on their hands at year's end. Like what he has done not only looks sustainable, and we have no idea what sustainability looks like for a guy that hasn't started since pre-COVID, but it looks sustainable because this is what we've seen in flashes out of the White Sox bullpen the last several years. but Garrett Crochet has tapped into a level of command that I had no idea he had. No idea. Last year in 12 and 2/3, coming off injury, he walked 13. He's got 16 Ks and one walk in 13 innings. Where did that come from? With that stuff, I have to expect more than one walk in 13 innings.
It's wild. You know what's interesting
It's
is
it's not wild. That's the
no,
thing.
it's
It's
the
actually the
opposite of
opposite.
wild. It's the opposite of wild. We saw him in spurts out of the bullpen really fill up the zone, and I think there was just the concern of okay, can you do it now stretched out as a starter? Seeing him maintain the velocity too is pretty amazing because when we saw him last year, even out of the bullpen, it was kind of similar in terms of velocity. Maybe he grabbed a few more 99s and 100s, but when you look at the average velocity, I know he battled some injuries last year, but before, even in one inning spurts, it was 97, 90, 98, some mostly 96 and 97s on the average velocity front. And then through these first two starts, we've got an average velocity of 97.1 miles per hour on the fastball. That's a huge part of it, but it's the shape. It's the ability to mix now. And yeah, it's going to be mostly fastball slider. He'll sprinkle in a changeup here and there, but I think the fastball and slider are so good that he uses those pretty evenly and they work to both lefties and righties. So there's not this extreme fastball reliance. It's about like a 53% usage on the four seamer and then a 43% usage so far this year on the slider. So it's enough to keep hitters off balance. We talk about two pitch guys. It's harder to be an ace if you're a two pitch guy. And that's why I think the A word has to be, withheld maybe a little bit, but he's super funky. And I think that helps a ton too. And he's tried a couple changeups. We'll see how those continue, as he gets more innings under his belt. The most important thing here is that the White Sox have a clear-cut, talented arm for them that could be a number two type of, or a number three at the very least if he keeps this up. And they need every building block that they can have. My only question is, can he do this every fifth day for 5 months, right? When we're in July, is it going to look the same? Or August, is it going to look the same? I think that's a question everybody is waiting for the answer to. And with some injury history out of the bullpen and things like that, and some classic stuff, nothing crazy. That's
No.
just my one question, though.
I mean, who's the last tooled out college lefty the White Sox had that you had durability concerns with? Hint, it's not that long ago.
Yeah.
Carlos Rodon, man. He could go one of two ways. He could go the Carlos Rodon route, or he could go the anti-Rodon route, where he's, and the anti-Rodon could look like Sale. And I saw Peter tweet, there's a lot of like Sale vibes here. I don't think so. I think he's his own cat. Sale is a lank machine and he's whippy. Crochet's just a big dude that throws like a big dude and
Yeah.
he spins the shit out of it. I actually think there's more Rodon in Crochet than Sale in Crochet because Rodon was bully the crap out of you with a hard fastball and a demonic slider. And that's what Crochet is doing at this point. He's just a little bit taller and longer than Rodon, who is shorter and stockier. But that's my big question too. And the answer is TBD. Nobody has any idea how Crochet is going to handle a major league workload because he hasn't come close to half of a major league workload. So if you think you know what you're talking about when it comes to Garrett Crochet in July, you don't, and don't do it. Just enjoy what you've got right now. And it is amazing. And it looks like he's one of the better pitchers in the American League through two starts.
I'll be honest, I didn't think he was going to do it against the Braves. And he
No.
matched it. He matched it against the Braves. So clearly, I mean, the stuff is playing. I love the Bronson Arroyo leg kick too. It's straight leg going out. I haven't seen that in a while. That kind of leg kick. So it's fun. He's just fun to watch. And he's real confident right now. To be filling up the zone with both those pitches the way he is.
Yeah.
Whether it's Ronald Acuna Jr. or anybody else, like he's not really worried about you barreling him.
Once Mackenzie Gore ditched the leg kick, I thought that was the last of the Bronson Arroyos, but Garrett Crochet is bringing back the Bronson Arroyos. So, all right, you want to talk gas? 102.4, 102.2, 102.1. I think it was 3 fastballs over 102 miles an hour, and then another like 5 or 6 over 101 miles an hour. Mason Miller, the reliever, is a cheat code, and it's going to be incredibly fun to watch this guy throw. The question is, can he stay on the field for the entirety of the year? That's been
Another.
the question for Mason Miller through the minor leagues. I know in college too, a phenomenal conversation last year, the year
Mm-hmm.
before, last year,
Last
beginning of
year.
last year, with Mason Miller on the call up. And I mean, like, if he's on the mound, it's Globetrotters.
Oh my gosh. It was so cool to see him so fired up too in Oakland when there's like 1,000 fans there. But he goes 2 innings, 4 punchies, no runs, 1 walk, and just really, I think he only gave up 1 hit. What was amazing to me is sitting 101 pretty much. He averaged 100.9 miles per hour on that fastball. The breaking ball was just disgusting to
Wow.
where nobody could hit it. I was listening to the Red Sox broadcast when I was watching it, and even they were just marveling what a performance from
Mhm.
Mason Miller. But I just love seeing him so fired up. He gave like the full uppercut fist pump after he got that last K and strut off the mound. He is so fun. He is so talented. I understand why they made the move to the bullpen given his history. And now you move him to the bullpen. He could be. We talked about it going into the year, one of the best closers in the game. That's why he was a top 100 prospect despite the injury history and being moved to the bullpen. That was just a perfect example of what can be here. There's few players in baseball I want to see stay healthy. One, because of his story, but two, because of how fun he is to watch when he's on the mound.
Yeah, man. Mason Miller, I think is the best example of what I think is like a trend that we've got in baseball right now. There are so many disgusting relievers in Major League Baseball. And we want to talk about, bullpens like, oh, bullpens are being used more than ever before. The bullpen conversation, aside from like the top five closers in baseball, is not about how gross individual relievers are. It's about how much they're used and how that's a bad thing. It's like, oh, the starting pitcher's dead. They're all bullpen games and openers and all that. Yeah, what if those guys are really good? Mason Miller's really good, and Mason Miller is not in the same breath yet as Felix Bautista, Yohan Duran, Emmanuel Clase, Josh Hader, Devin Williams. Those are the guys we talk about. But respect the setup, man. And Miller's going to be the closer. I put out a statement. I considered it a statement on Twitter. I said it's all about Ryan Walker late on Tuesday night. And what I mean by that is like Ryan Walker's not Camilo Doval. Nobody's buying Ryan Walker jerseys. But nobody who throws like that should be able to throw 95 and
Yeah.
have that slider to accompany it. There are so many freak shows in Major League bullpens. I think Miller is the freakiest of the shows in Major League bullpens. But man, like, be thankful that you have that elite setup guy that you love watching on your favorite team.
Absolutely. And the other part of it is like, the game, we've seen like, closers still get paid and things like that. But I think there's a lot of value to the setup guy that can go 2 innings
I
too.
mean,
And
dude, you watched it firsthand with Nardi last year.
yeah, 100%. And just guys that aren't closers have been so finicky historically. Like it's almost a limitation to a degree. That's why I love David Bednar, because Bednar is going to go out there and give you 2 innings sometimes, or he's going to throw pretty frequently. And Mason Miller seems like David Bednar if you clicked upgrade in terms of the stuff, and like that could be really fun where he could be getting these 2 inning saves. He could be a guy that you want him to stay healthy, but you hope that just not having him in a rotation workload. He can be a guy that ends up being used a lot and having success that way because 2 innings for him, like he's going to hold 101. He's not going to be like a Josh Hader that can't throw back-to-back days and can't go more than 3 outs and things like that. Like this is a unique situation here where I think he could be one of the most valuable relievers in the game.
Yeah. Couple more things. Hitters now. Talk to me about your boy Davis Schneider.
Well, speaking of Josh Hader,
Yeah, speaking of elite closers, talk to me
slow
about Davis
start for
Schneider.
Josh. Yeah, slow start for Josh. I mean, man, play Davis Schneider more, please. I mean, it's crazy. He has 2 starts this year. He has 2 homers. The Blue Jays have been anemic offensively. He broke a stretch of 20 innings where the Blue Jays haven't scored. I understand Davis Schneider is going to strike out. He's also going to homer. He's also going to hit the ball really hard. I know Blue Jays fans want to see Davis Schneider play more. Not only that, he's got just that clutch gene in him too. Not just because he did it there. He has come up with big hits for them time and time again. Look, if he struggles, that's fine, but like let's see what he can do. Some of the other names that we're seeing out there consistently is pretty frustrating. I get that IKF brings some defensive value. Well, if you really cared about defense that much, would you have the guy you have at shortstop and the guy you have at first base? Like, I just don't really get it. You need to hit. You need to hit to win ball games, and Davis Schneider is going to elongate that lineup. I mean, they're starting Ernie Clement, who I know had a really good spring, but like, there's guys that I think could fill in and be decent. And then there's guys who I think can get on a heater and mash with the best of them. And when Davis Schneider's hot, he can really mash. I'm taking Davis Schneider at his best over a Kevin Biggio, over an IKF, over some of these other Ernie Clement. And I understand that maybe at the end of the year, those other guys may not have as many ebbs and flows. But I think that the Jays need a spark right now. And Davis Schneider is the spark of all sparks. That home run was electric, by the way, too. Down to
Yes.
their last out. 109 miles an hour off the bat, just moonshot.
So one of my favorite parts about it was Dan Shulman, the TV guy for the Blue Jays. I don't really think knew that it was getting out. I didn't know that it was getting out off the bat. Like, and you saw, I think it was Myers in center, like on a dead sprint back to the wall. I thought that thing was going to hit off like the base of the wall, and it was be like, oh, new life. And then it kept on going, kept on going, kept on going, and then it got out. So there was almost like this delayed sense of surprise, and it's like, holy shit! How about the magnitude of this? All of a sudden, the Jays have a lead. Like we were, prepped for the game to be over 6 seconds before it happened. And now, I mean, I don't know. I thought that was very dramatic in a great way.
Uh,
And Davis Schneider, when you kind of stack him against IKF, who's making $7.5 million, we have to remember that. Like they're
yeah.
gonna pay it, they're gonna play him because they gotta pay him. Biggio, I don't know, that's a weird one. Davis Schneider should not be losing plate appearances to Ernie Clement. I'll get that out of the way right now.
I know they're like really good friends too. So
I'm sure he's a
but
great guy, but like
yeah,
one of them's better than the other.
yeah. And Davis can fill in and left and play second. And but yeah, it is interesting. I'm fascinated by how the Blue Jays plan on kind of uh situating all of that. And I know that the front office is very involved in a lot of the managerial decisions and things like that as well. My question I was going to chime in with too is at what point do you, it's super early, but at what point do you get a little nervous about Josh Hader? His velo was down a bit in the spring, and he averages mostly 96, 97 on the heater. In the spring, it was more 94, 95. And then so far, it's been closer to 95.5. I don't know if that's the issue as much as it is just him leaving pitches over the middle. He came out really hot. Like he looked great in the first two outings, but then does throw 3 consecutive days here, or actually, sorry, 3 out of 4 days here.
Yeah.
And in the latter two outings, he struggles. I wonder if this is going to be one of those things where, I mean, they have the bullpen where they don't need to go to Hader as consistently, but it's just crazy to me that you're going to pay all this money for a reliever and then you got to operate under maybe these limitations. But it's interesting to see him come out so hot, strike out the side, have a nice outing, his second outing of the season as well. And then the last two have been rough, and it's kind of with shorter rest and a little bit longer, larger pitch samples here. Do you think that has anything to do with the usage and they have to adjust to that? Or is it just, hey, he got beat by the Yankees and one swing by the Blue Jays?
Yeah, I think Hader's just getting beat. And I don't think that you can ever really panic about a guy like him. If this happens and we get a month in and he's rocking like a 2.5 homer per nine clip, then I start to like really get concerned. And the thing that has separated the good years from the elite years for Josh Hader has been the long ball. When he is the elite of the elite, he's not letting the ball leave the ballpark. That was the first time that, someone's taken Hader deep this year. But, in Milwaukee before the trade to San Diego, like he had a homer problem. And,
Yeah.
In all of his years that he's just been good and he hasn't been, oh my God, like Josh Hader's the best closer in baseball, isn't he? Like the years that he becomes a forgotten man and we tab somebody else as the best closer in baseball, it's because he has a homer problem. And I have to let the season get a month old before I say, yeah, he's got a homer problem this year.
Yeah. Totally understandable. And he just hung it. It was just a pitch middle, and Davis didn't miss it. But that just seems to be what's happening right now. Just the command hasn't totally been there the last few outings. There was a walk before that, which is why they lost. But yeah, I agree. Like Hader, you got to just the ability to work through some of the other rough patches in the past leave me pretty confident that whether it's a couple games or 5 games or 6 games, that to your point, he can bounce back and be fine and overall keep the ball in the yard. Though the Crawford boxes could get him burned a few times this year, and
Yeah.
that may happen here and there. But at the end of the day, I still think that they've got a really good closer here and one of the better bullpens. And the fact is, if Hader is a little bit finicky, you have so many other options in Abreu and Presley and whoever else you want to throw in there that can close out games when Hader maybe isn't available.
And Brian Abreu doesn't suck. I know that we're like 3, 4 outings into his season and like his numbers suck right now. Brian Abreu doesn't suck. I promise
No,
that.
that's another one I'm not going to be worried about him. But
Yeah.
another guy that gave up 2 bombs, who was a little surprising. No one
Mhm.
squared that guy up for like 6 months at one point.
Yeah. By the way, I'm thinking for some reason Brian Abreu got me to like the Rangers thought. We're gonna jump into Josh Young here, but did you and Peter mention the Adolis Garcia stuff?
No, no.
Stop accusing Adolis Garcia of being that guy. Like there was way too much Twitter discourse about that because he looks huge. He's a unit. He works really
Yeah.
hard on his body. Until proven otherwise, you can't put that label on fucking people anymore.
No,
Don't do
it's
that. That's so unfair.
especially with all the testing you have nowadays.
Yeah,
With
like
Twitter
don't do that.
famously a census of the most reasonable minds. It's so annoying to negate success with things like that, right?
Nobody wants anybody to be truly successful because
No, I
of
with the Otani stuff, it's like people want him to be guilty. It's so wild on social media. But no, I mean, Adolis, it's so hard to get away with PEDs in today's game, and guys get caught, and I don't think that's the difference for Adolis. I know he looks like a monster man,
yeah, probably
but
because he had a sick offseason.
yeah, one of the big changes for him over the last couple of years has been his approach and has been his actual swing. And those are the things that I think end up boding well for hitters more so than physical strength. But of course, the physical strength helps a lot when you optimize your swing. Adolis is just a monster.
By the way, Lucan Baker went yard yesterday for the Memphis Redbirds. And I saw this note from Cardinals player development. Lucan Baker hit his 56th career home run for the Memphis Redbirds in last night's win, tying Scott Seabowl for fourth most. Baker is 1 homer shy of moving into a tie for second most with John Gall and Adolis Garcia. Adolis Garcia had 57 home runs for the Memphis Redbirds before getting this shot.
That's
Don't
crazy.
try and disparage him. He works really hard.
Yeah, I love
Um,
that.
Chris Young in media availability in Texas said, quote, and this is from Evan Grant, um, the Rangers, the initial x-rays created some optimism for a 6-week timeline, but the surgery to repair Josh's wrist was more involved than anticipated. So that pushes a 6-week recovery to an 8 to 10 week recovery. Josh Young's going to be out 2 to 2.5 months. Stinks. We can extend it to a Josh Young injury conversation if we want. I really want to do it. It just seems like he's an injury prone guy now, and we may have to accept that.
Mhm.
But that in turn created a runway for Justin Foscue to make his long overdue major league debut. Foscue's going to get a shot. What can people expect from Justin Foscue, who was previously on Just Baseball's Top 100?
Yeah, just missed now because so many new names entered in, especially after the draft, and just some younger players that have impressed, and Foscue being 25 years old. But a lot of other teams who would have debuted by now, like you said, it's a plus hit tool and enough impact. He's just going to be really solid. Nothing's going to jump off the page, but the guy walked more than he struck out last year in AAA. I understand this is a PCL, but his exit velocities are pretty much average, which is all you need when you're going to make contact, at a plus clip, good approach. I think it's the perfect player if you're not going to replace Josh Young. So bringing somebody up, you just want them to be able to fill in and help and contribute and not be a gaping hole. And I think Justin Foscue is the perfect plug-in player because he's going to give you good ABs. He's going to make a lot of contact. He's not the best defender in the world, but he can play second. He can play first. I think in a pinch, you could slide over to third. And they don't need him to do that because they have other guys that can do that. But I think just how solid he is in terms of being able to give you good ABs at the bottom of your order and make a lot of contact and draw walks. And there's still enough thump in there, especially to the pull side. I think he's a solid, really solid player. I think he could be an above average regular. And for the Rangers, just trying to keep it going right now. He's the perfect prospect to bring up and make that adjustment to the big leagues maybe a little bit better than a lot of other rookies may.
So who do you think gets the majority of the reps at third base?
That's a great question.
Like, I don't
Have
think
they
it's
said
possible.
anything about that?
So I think they ran out Josh H. Smith the other day, if I'm not mistaken. Their options on the big league roster right now when it comes to third base are Josh Smith, Ezekiel Duran, and Foscue.
So I was thinking Duran, and I could see like Foscue's arm is a little bit of a limitation. They hadn't played him at third at all this season or in spring training, which was interesting. But he did play third base as recently as September 10th of last season. But it was mostly second base, first base, and that's where he plays best. So I feel like Duran could make the most sense if you want to go with the best offensive option,
Yeah.
and then have him kind of fit in somewhere else. But that seems to be what makes the most sense to me.
Part of me is thinking two-part platoon at each of the corner infield spots. Jared Walsh with Nathaniel Lowe out right now. Jared Walsh is the lefty hitting first baseman. Foscue can be the first baseman against left-handed pitching.
Yeah.
So the righty hitting first baseman. And then against right-handed pitching, Josh Smith can play third base. He's a lefty bat. And then Duran can play third base as a righty bat. I feel like you just platoon the living shit out of this until you get healthy.
And to your point, I mean, Foscue last year against lefties, 944 OPS and did a lot of damage, and the contact rates were even better. So he's a lefty masher. He always has been. That seems to be what makes the most sense. So he might not be playing every day, but he spells the lefties at first base, could at third base if you needed him to, but Duran could also do that as well. He just gives them a really good option off the bench and a perfect lefty masher that they need.
That's becoming my go-to. Like, if I had a platoon button, just smash the platoon button. When in doubt, platoon. It's the Rays thing. I mean, like, there are a lot of teams that do it.
Giants' magical season, I really think, was by turning two decent players into one great player by platooning them perfectly. And it's really hard to do, and you have to have the pieces fit together. But this is one of those instances where I do think the pieces fit together because you don't need Walsh facing lefties.
No, at all. Last but not least, Junior Caminero. Way better than anticipated. Caminero got hurt after homering for the first time this year in AAA against John Means on Sunday. He then pulled up running to first base. It is not anything super serious. 7-day IL with a quad strain. So he should be good in a week or two. I love that he's not missing much time.
Thank goodness. I was worried it might be, a little bit more involved of a strain. We want to see this guy up in the big league soon. And the Rays, I mean, they could probably use him relatively soon. I think the offense could use a little bit of a jolt. I was worried that it was already unfortunate that he had to start in AAA and then he might miss several weeks and then he probably has to go back to AAA and show some things. And it might be a slow start off of the injury. And then all of a sudden we're in June and he hasn't debuted yet. That was my nightmare, but it seems like he could be back by the end of the week or early next week and pick right back up. Thank goodness. And I mean, just number three prospect or number two prospect or number three prospect in baseball. I would say number three. Wyatt Langford is number two. Jackson Holliday number one. But number three prospect in baseball. You want to see those guys on the field, especially when he's just about big league ready.
Yeah, 100%. Nice schoolboy Q shirt.
Thank you. I didn't know if you were going to pick that up.
Yeah, I got it. I was just like, that is a very white shirt that looks very new. And I know that you were a big fan of the entirety of Schoolboy's new album. I know you thought maybe it was his best work, but
not my favorite, but it was good. I do like he was experimental. I thought it was cool to see him kind of get outside of his comfort zone, try some new things. There's some bangers on there, but there's some unique ones that I probably won't revisit as much. But he's one of my favorite. He's one of my favorite that there is out there. And there's not a lot of ways to support artists anymore because streams don't pay very
Nope.
much.
Tour
So
merch. You got to get tour merch.
if I can buy a nice shirt and support the guys I like or the girls I like, I mean, I'm happy to do it. And Schoolboy is one of my favorites. Thank God for me. That hits. That song hits hard.
Got you. Okay. Buy some merch. Buy some Just Baseball merch. That actually helps us too.
That helps us too.
Actually,
Yeah,
we're in the streaming industry as well, so like buy some merch. That helps us. Also, go listen to any show that we've got on the Just Baseball Network. Last thing from me, Matt Clapp on Twitter pointed my attention to this. Javier Assad in his first 153 major league innings has a 2.94 ERA. Respect my man.
Respect him. It's crazy. He's one of those guys that's going to piece together a great large sample, and people still aren't going to realize how good, how solid he is.
And they're haters.
He's so fun.
In the words of
I hope he
LeVar
keeps it
Ball.
rolling.
Man, in the words of LeVar, haters. We will talk to you guys tomorrow.